Thank you for coming. Appreciate everyone's presence here. So I'm going to talk. My name is Al Díaz. I'm a New York-born multimedia artist who just happens to have been brought up in the New York graffiti communities from the age of 12, I think, and therefore, that's why this. Let me talk about this show. This show is a it's a timeline that starts. It's specific to New York graffiti culture, which is the mother culture of all graffiti. It started here in New York. Probably started to surface around 1967 and evolved into what we have today, which is an international phenomenon. But I don't want to go too deeply into the history of graffiti because I'd like to thank, first of all, I'd like to thank Howl for hosting not only this show, but for all the good work they've done in the East Village and for the East Village art scene and downtown New York art community, art and letters community. Excuse me. Anyway, so what we've put together here for tonight is a panel of old school graffiti writers. These gentlemen are key players in the development of graffiti, or the guys who set the ground rules and the standard for what would become this huge phenomena. One thing I like to talk about is the fact that graffiti culture started as excuse me, I'm sorry. It was created by children, basically. We were between the ages of 12 and 16, and by the time you got to 16, you basically aged out. So that's one of the beauties of it, is that it was created by very young men and women, and it's become such a huge thing. Nobody expected that to happen, but through this evolution, this is what we, and we're very proud of that we created this. And anyway, I'd like to introduce the mediator here, which is Jay Edlin / Terror 161, who's going to conduct this talk tonight. Thank you for your presence once again.
First of all, welcome everybody. Once again, I have an inferiority complex based on being surrounded by people that did bigger things than I ever did. So let me introduce them. From Brooklyn, to my left, we got Wicked Gary. Dating back to the beginning, Brooklyn, we got Coco 144 to his left. Coco's name was one of the first I ever saw, and my home line was the Broadway line, and that was the first line I am aware of ever having graffiti on the outside of the train. Coco 144, Tan 144, Junior 161, K 161, etc. Those were my heroes. Then on his left, we have Ree from the Bronx, AKA Opel, and one of the few guys from that era that's probably even nastier now than he was then. I mean, the guy, I don't know, he keeps getting better. To my right is the only guy that I met back when he was still writing, probably 75. He came up to Riverdale to go to high school, and I met him. He probably forgot about me, but I remember meeting him. And he was one of my idols, kind of still is, one of the best tags in the history of graffiti, one of the best throw-ups in the history of graffiti, and a pretty good dude, which is rare. Yeah, well, And special guest star, another guy that I looked up to, who him and his partner, Mark 198, and the MG Boys were a force to be reckoned with, and dominated that line like when the Wild Style crew, Tracy and those guys were kind of dying out, these guys just like took the torch and ran with it. Kit 17. So I want to start out maybe, I think I know chronologically, but maybe like the only Brooklyn guy in the house, Wicked Gary. Wicked Gary, you know, is from the Ex-Vandals, which to my knowledge, and I don't have an all-knowledge ability, but I think it was like the first crew that was just based, it wasn't a gang, it was like a graffiti writing crew. And what was different about it was the members wrote the name of the crew ahead of their own names to get, like, for unity, to get the crew up ahead of themselves, which is kind of an anti-graffiti thing because everybody wants to be king and, you know, just write their name as an individual. So I would like to know, like, how did Ex-Vandals, Dino Nod, you know, all of those guys get started? You guys went to high school, right?
Correct. Basically, the Ex-Vandals started out as a bunch of writers from different neighborhoods who all went to school together at Erasmus Hall in Flatbush. And we found ourselves around the same people, around the same time. And we happened to also notice that we were the guys who were writing on the walls. So once we discovered each other's identities, we started to hang a little bit more together. And then we just kind of became a social group, you know, just, you know, these were the guys that like in the cafeteria or whatever, we would mingle around. So when it came to writing, we were actually some of the better writers in the borough also, even though we were from different neighborhoods. And one day, Dino Nod, who was the original Ex-Vandal leader, had this wonderful idea, and he was like, could you imagine where our names would be and how much our names would be around if we had been writing the same thing? Mike 171!
Yo, I got stopped by the police.
Mike 171 in the house.
Yes. Okay. We'll get Mike a chair.
How you doing?
How you been?
Come on, Mike.
All right. So basically, Dino Nod's initial idea was, could you imagine how much our names would have been around had we all been writing the same thing? And when we thought about it, we were like, man, we would have had the entire borough, you know, not just our own neighborhoods. So one Friday afternoon, we decided to get together at Dino Nod's house after class. And we went to his house and we had our first official meeting where we kind of decided that we were going to come up with a name for a group for ourselves and then began to write the name of the group. So when we thought about it, we liked the name Vandals because that defined who we were. But there had to be a little bit something more to it. And at some point, somebody said experienced, and we were like, yeah, but that's too fucking long to write. We'll get caught every time trying to write that out. So what we did was we shortened the experience to X, and the name of the group was born, the Ex-Vandals. So that particular first meeting, there were 7 of us there, and I didn't actually notice it then, even though there were more people at the meeting who decided not to become members. The 7 that were members, it ended up actually being a all-black organization too, now that I look back at it, because all the original members were black. That's a little side note to history, which I just realized a couple of years ago, but I wanted to share that with you because I think it's important. But we left there with a mission where we defined some rules for the crew, and basically we said in order to make an impact, what we wanted to do was stop being individuals and become the group. So that day, for at least the next 2 months, we all stopped writing our names. We wrote the crew name only. Okay? And picture this. Friday, everybody went home from school. Ex-Vandals didn't exist. Monday morning, when you came out to go back to work or back to school, all you saw everywhere was ex-Vandals, and everybody was like, what the fuck is an ex-Vandal? It took the borough by storm, and then thanks to the meetings that we had and being organized, we then took the city by storm, and the rest is history, and we are now 50 years old.
Okay, moving to my left, a guy who, like most of the people that I worshiped back then, I met like 20 years after the fact. Coco 144, like Mike 171, a member of UGA, which was United Graffiti Artists, and Wicked Gary. I'm sorry. So, without further ado, one of my other heroes, Coco 144. And, I'd like to ask you where you were living when you started writing, how long you wrote, and I believe you were one of the only UGA guys that listened and actually stopped writing when you joined.
I did, yeah. First of all, although Al thanked everyone, I want to thank everyone again for your presence and your support. I'm born and raised in Upper West Harlem on 144th between Broadway and Amsterdam. Lived there pretty much all my life, or until the 90s. I started writing, I'm going to say in 1970, and I wrote for 2 years, from 1970 and 1972. I concentrated on the number one line. There was a layup in between 137th City College Station and 145th. So I was practically like a block away. I could roll out of bed and go into the layup. And that's where I was going with my writing partner, Tan 144 and Ace 137. But what clicked, what inspired me to write, I was going to junior high school up in Washington Heights at Stitt, Edward W. Stitt. And I got to see Taki, Filthy Greek, Greg, Joe 182, and I was like, yo, there's something going on there that there was just something that caught my attention, and I wanted to be part I wanted to take part of writing my name. So, yeah, I started tagging around, but it wasn't anything serious in late '69. I would say that in the beginning of 1970, I went in a little harder. And that's where we took advantage of the layup in between 145th and 137th Street. And that's where we were at every Saturday and every Sunday. It wasn't until that we somehow or another got our hands on the keys that we snatched when 137 was the last stop on the number one train, and then they flip it around. We were able, while the conductor was exiting, and he would come outside and then lock the doors from outside, that we'd snatch the keys were gone. So now we had access to hit the inside of the trains also. I don't know if that answered your question or if I went a little too long on it.
That's good. I want to now move left to Mike 171, who...
Mike doesn't have it.
Yeah, you need? Yeah. What's up, man?
Mike 171 is one of the foremost wall writers. I don't know if you've seen the book and the movie, but he pretty much reps it hard. There it is.
Nonstop.
Yep. And, unbelievably, despite my youthful countenance, I'm 64 years old 2 weeks ago. And I remember Mike 171 on the rocks by the George Washington Bridge with a big Freddie 173 will shock the world right next to it. And, you know, he was one of the earliest names, along with SJK, Jack Starr, Frank 207, that I remember, because they were like, you know, Inwood, Washington Heights. I was up in Riverdale, and I was like, you know, kind of wishing I knew who they were or how they did it. I eventually figured it out, but I was late. So what I'd like to ask you, Mike, is you were one of the original guys that Hugo recruited for UGA, and Henry and all those guys. How did he find you guys?
All right. First of all, I want to thank God for allowing me to be here. You guys can hear me without mic?
Oh, here.
You know, I don't need a mic.
You are a Mike.
I'm a recovering addict and alcoholic, and I speak at AA meetings. I go to prisons, hospitals, institutions. I'm clean 35 years, day at a time. I just turned 66 a while back. 2 days ago, I just got out of hospital. My heart was jumping. I was in the VA hospital laid up. I asked the doctor to let me out if I could be here tonight. And I'm getting on a plane tomorrow to Amsterdam and to Paris to take care of some unfinished business that happened in 2019 before the pandemic. Now that we could travel, I'm going to go do some shit and open some doors so we can get finished about our Bible, the Wall Riders, and the Holy Grail, the movie, The Wall Riders, is a history of where we are, why we're here today, and why everybody's down Miami and everywhere else putting up murals and getting paid big money for the shit that we started as kids. This is a culture that we started by kids, for kids at that time. If you was in our shoes in 1968 and the early 70s, you knew what was going down. You know what I mean? So getting back to you with that rock, that shit brought me back because that's the rock, the foundation. That's like Jerusalem with Jesus and shit, you understand? This is where the shit started, bro.
You know exactly what I'm saying.
So if you people know who I am now, if you don't know now, you know, right? So the deal is, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Uptown moneymaker, downtown heartbreaker, right? From the city with no pity, so nice I had a neighbor twice, New York, New York. And if you mess with me, you will see how much trouble I could be with my 38, my 45s. But my spray cans, that's how I express myself to stay alive. You understand? So I'm gonna stand up. I'm gonna preach now, you know what I mean? But, you know, I wear my shit on my shit, you know, that's who I am. And the deal is this, bro, that we started this for us. Because Vietnam was going on, my pops just died, Steve's father stepped off. We out here struggling to stay alive. My mother scrubbing people's floors on the street on our block, 50 cents, just to get me a liverwurst sandwich. You understand? So I seen all the struggles we had to go through, bro, to survive. So we took all that anger and frustration and fuck the government and the world, and we going down into tunnels. And we taking all that, because we dealing with drugs and guns, and the gangs started coming up and all that shit. I'm going to stay a few minutes, you don't mind, because I was late, you know? But the deal is this, right? Alex, your show, you tell me to sit down and shut up. But the deal is this, that we started this for us. And here we are 54 years later. We got Wall Riders, my brother Coco here, Wicked Gary, you know, we put this shit together. The question is, how did you go find us? You go found Freddie 173. Freddie, where can I find these guys? Mike, Snake, Eddie, and Stitch. Over here. So they found Henry. Henry brought him to us on the wall of, we say Jew Park, but it was, what was it called? J. Hood Wright Park, 173rd, Fort Washington. Came over, we thought he was a cop, guy with glasses, looking like Poindexter, you know, saying, yeah, I'm from City College. I'm junior over here trying to get you guys hooked up. And he said, all right, we'll meet down at your house, whatever. Go to the college, City College. So that's what we did. We met him down there. You know what I mean? So that's how we started. So where we evolved from then to where we are today, that's what I'm saying. I'm taking the point now, I was ordained the ghetto pope, because I bring hope to true York City. So we're here with the Bible and the Holy Grail, and if you want history like the timeline, this is it. This is as far as you go. Any other book or whatever comes out of anyone's mouth, from their mouth to your ears, is bullshit. Everything is right here, what you hear from us right now. So on that, I'm going to, what we do up in North Avenue, we zip our lip and throw the key away. Just watch our actions. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. All right, I'm going to move to my right now to just mix it up for a little. Don't worry, Ree, we'll get to you.
You got to set the record straight, bro.
Like I said, the only guy that I knew when he was still writing to my right was a guy who, along with Cliff 159, Mafia, Peace 108, Moses, was like a legendary Broadway writer. He branched out to All City later on, but he had the D's, the ones, the threes, you know, even other lines later, which were letter lines, BMTs, just crushed it. And he had like the most beautiful handwriting in 3 different styles, bunch of different names. I'll let him tell his own story, but he was in grade school with like Cliff 159 and the late Stan 153, both of them gone now, unfortunately. Comes out of Harlem. Tell us how you got all, you know, legendary.
Thank you, Jason. He's a great guy here. He killed Broadway too. Don't let him fool you. He did his thing. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jester 1. I'm from Harlem, USA.
Yeah.
And I represent my boy, the Fearless Four.
That's right. Yeah, tell him. Where you
That's
from?
right. That's
Shake
right.
that butt.
Peso 131 was one of my mentors. He showed me whenever I needed a style, like, you know, I was just a regular guy who wanted to see my name everywhere I went.
That's right.
And, you know, I did a lot of throw-ups. But when I wanted to rock a style or when I wanted to do a burner, I would go to my classmate, Peso. And to be said, I went to high school. First of all, like he said, I went to grade school with Cliff 159 and Stan 153. We went through kindergarten all the way up to like the 6th grade. Wow. But once we got to the 6th grade, Harlem said, you guys need to get out of here. So they sent us to Inwood to go to middle school. Yeah. So I was in middle school with guys like, and you probably may not have heard of these guys, but they were a big influence on me. Guys like Slick 1, Butler 1 and 2, yeah. Jockey, right. Pinky. These guys, they killed Broadway and they killed the A-line.
PS 52.
Yes, junior high school 52.
Thank you.
I went there. And then after that, I went to 200 Dykeman Street. Yeah. But I will never forget the way these guys wrote, and that's where I get my style from Broadway. And the first line that I ever hit, believe it or not, was the 4s. Me and Cliff used to go to the layups on the 4 line and hit those layups. One guy that I didn't mention that was from our hood was TJ 159. He killed the D's, and the funny thing is I grew up with this guy, and I never knew he was a writer. And I guess the reason why I didn't know he was a writer is because he was hitting the D's. Nobody was hitting he was hitting INDs, but everybody wanted to get on the IRTs because that's the line that was recognized. That's the line where you go to 149th Street Grand Concourse and sit and wait to see your pieces. That was the line, the 4s and the 5s and the 2s. Nobody really cared about the D's at that time. But eventually, I ran into this guy named N, AKA Kill 3, and he said, listen, if you want to get your name up in graffiti, don't just hit the 4s and the 5s, you gotta hit every line. And I just hitched my wagon onto N, and the rest is history. But my favorite lines to hit was definitely the 1s, and Reed can tell you that because he was there. Him and Part. The 1s, the 3s, the 3-yard. I mean, it was just fascinating for me at that time.
And then what happened? You moved to Queens and destroyed.
Then I moved to Queens, and I discovered. Well, no, I didn't hook up with Dean in Queens because me and Dean used to hit the 1s and the 3s. We used to hit in the Manhattan before he moved to Queens. We both moved to Queens at the same time. We used to hit the 3-yard and the 1 tunnel. Oh, the infamous 1 tunnel.
Yeah, I want to just expound on something Jester was saying. This guy pretty much laid out the prototype for a 2-letter throw-up that just the whole point of it was to be everywhere. This guy had double deckers, he had like ins that were across the whole train. He was on every line. He was like the only guy I would say that could say king of all lines, which he did right. It wasn't the neatest stuff. It changed the face of graffiti because, you know, then is the Wiz and, you know, T.I. and T.O. 729 and all these OI, all of these guys followed AG3, you know, all of these guys, everybody, even Jester came up with DYE, but had to drop the E off his name because In was so fast, he painted with like two hands at once, right? And he did pieces that said In, number 10,000, you know, and he wasn't lying. So
In was
a lot
about-
of people quit because they were like, wow, it's just a sloppy mess. Two-letter throw-ups have taken over the face of graffiti, but you know, if that was another, like, you know, it was either more or do the best pieces, and they were trying to coexist.
In was about quantity rather than quality.
But the funny thing is, he had the ability as Kill 3 to do nice pieces. He just chose to take it in another direction. And, you know, two-letter throw-ups is a whole different ball game, and that was just like, yeah, just I'm going to get up as much as I possibly can. And everybody, for a while, jumped on the bandwagon. The top crew, I would say, was the ones who really, you know, took that to the highest level. Okay, so I'm going to move one more to the right. Special guest star, Kit 17. I would say, like, I first started to notice him on the 4 line, which is, I guess, where he lived, right? You lived on Allerton, okay. Wrong again. Okay, so originally I would see these guys, Hyson, East, and they were like kings of the 4 line, right? So then I started to see, you know, Kit 17 as one of the earliest guys with them, which later became the MG Boys. And MG stood for like Mission Graffiti, like I guess like Mission Impossible.
That's exactly where it came from.
All right, got something right. So you know, these guys were mainly, I would say, like tough white boys from the Bronx that, you know, they held down the 4 yard. They dominated the 4 line, you know, it was like Mark 198, Kit 17, Boots 119, Fuzz 1, later on Fritos, you know, Peanut 2. What? Okay.
He was in the neighborhood.
He was a neighborhood guy. So why don't you like tell us how you met, I think Hyson and all those guys and got into it?
Well, when I came up, I knew Mark in 98 before the graffiti. Him and my sister knew each other. I went to school with him. So at that time, like 73, I was playing around in the streets, you know, hitting the buses and all that, just tagging like with the toy markers. Remember the little, the glass markers?
Dry mark.
Dry markers, yeah. We would hit I would stand on the corner because I was working in the fruit store delivering, cutting school. And every time the bus pulled up, I'd tag the back of it. So I hooked up with Mark. He says, what are you doing? I'll take you to the trains. This was like late 74. And I started going with Mark, Hyson, East, Flip 13 was another one, CB 13. And we were hitting, first I started in the D yard. We were hitting the little Ds. And then we went to the 4s. And we were hitting the 4s a lot. And we originally came from 198th Street in Valentine. That's where the crew formed. And at that time, we were getting harassed by cops all the time. That's how we ended up on Meshulah Parkway. We would hang on Meshulah. At that time, it was 75. Hyson had stopped already. And me and Mark went up there. And we were right by the 4 yard, you know that. And all the guys from 80, Fuzz, and Mitch 77 also went to 80. I don't know if you know that. And we were hitting the 4s. And it was like our backyard because we were hanging out in the neighborhood and the 4 yard was right down the block. You know, so in the morning we would start out, we would go to McDonald's on 24th Street. And at that time, Peanut 2's mother worked there. And she used to hook us up with the, like the coupons for the free food and all that. She took care of us. And we would go there and we'd practice on napkins, paper, whatever. what we were going to do that night. And then we would go out, our day would go out racking, paint, clothes, whatever we can grab, albums, all that. And we would rack them up, come back home like we went to school, and make plans to go out in the nighttime and hit. And we would go in the foreyard. We would always go on top of the pipe, because you go up the driveway on top of the pipe and look down to see what's going on. And we would wait, like after 6:30, 7 o'clock, they would stop, they were all mostly pulled in after rush hour. And we would go down and we'd bomb. And it was me, Mark, Flip 13, East sometimes, Boots a little later on.
What about Nick 707?
Nick 707, 75. God bless him, Nick. Rest in peace, Nick. Nick was a style master. He was good, man. I mean, even his abstract work later on the plexiglasses and all that, he was about to blow up, Nick. He was always down here on the Lower East Side with doing all the shows and everything. But his style, I mean, it's his lettering and everything. It was great, man. It's sad that he went. It's sad. But he was my partner for a while. Me, him, and Mark were 98. We teamed up, the Fours. And also, I was in Esplanade also. I don't know if you know that. All my top-to-bottom whole cars were Esplanade because they had a platform. Remember, you would stand on. And there's a picture that Martha Cooper took a scene standing on it. It was just so easy. You stand on the platform and you could do your whole cars. And I did my whole car with Padre there also. But the MG boys, they originated like late 73, and I joined them like late 74 in the wintertime. And the original ones were East, Mark, Hyson, Flip 13, and CB 13. And I joined them after that. Fuzz was an MG boy also. He went to 80. He was from the neighborhood. He lived right down the block from the foreyard. I mean, we used to go in that yard, even if we didn't write, just to hang out. We were so comfortable with that yard. And a lot of people, they didn't like to go in that yard because that was an inside yard. If you got raided in that yard, there weren't too many ways out.
I think your mic.
Huh? Okay. Yeah, take that one. There weren't too many ways out of that yard. There were 2 or 3 ways out. Jester, you were in there. I was in there when he was doing the Ivory and Jester piece. He was right behind me, and me and Mark were doing the car. So he's familiar with that yard too. If you get raided in that yard, you got 3 ways. You're going out the gate, they'll be waiting for you. There was you're going up by the driveway. There was another way. It was very hard. If you knew that yard good, and you were able to piece in there, but a lot of people didn't want to go in there because they weren't familiar with the yard. And that's with all places. All these writers that they were going.
Tell people how it was under an apartment.
It was under Tracy Towers. What was it built? 73, Tracy Towers? 73, yeah. So, I mean, they had, when you went in the yard above you, we used to call them shit pipes from Tracy Towers. And we would crawl on those pipes. That's how we would get into the yard and get around. We'd go on top of those pipes and we would look down. And if we seen somewhere we were comfortable with, to piece with, we would just drop down on top of the train and go down and piece there. And that's how we got in that yard. But if you got raided in that yard and you didn't know that yard, you were getting caught. That was it, And the D yard also we went in. The D yard was an open yard. It was very, nothing was easy back then. But the D yard, if you got chased, it was easy to get away, because it was such a big yard and there was so many ways out. But the foreyard, you weren't getting out if you didn't know it. And that's where we came from, that neighborhood, the North Bronx.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And now, last and certainly not least, Bronx in the house, Bree 2.
That's right, my brother.
One of the nastiest guys ever to do it, without question. Wrote with a guy that not many people know of, Chino Malo, who was just straight up nasty. And to my knowledge, and I'm not doing so good tonight, but maybe the first Baudet character on the train, which obviously caught on.
I concur.
So why don't you tell us how you got into it and your years and your crews and all of that, Noga.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ree.
What's up, Rick?
Started in 73 to 77. I specialize on everything from window downs, from throw-ups, to top to bottoms, whole cars. I hit Basically, every layer, every tunnel to be. I started out on Broadway, and I moved over down the lines. Chino Malo was a fantastic partner. Me and him grew up on the same block. He lived on this side of the building, I lived on that side of the building. But before I got together with Chino, I was with Iron Mike, X-Ray 174, hitting every single bus, every single wall within 3-mile radius. Meaning we had a bus barn in front of us, a bus barn by the Sheridan Expressway, if you know the Bronx. So we did all that. When I saw what Coco was doing, what Wicked, what Jester was doing on the one line, I said, that's the place to be. And I went straight beeline. And Jester will tell you, I bombed the days out of it. I enjoy myself. I had plenty of pain, plenty of time. Now, mind you, I was no more than 12, 13 years old. How is this kid getting so much pain? I racked like there was no tomorrow.
That's the only way to get out. That's the only way.
Yeah, for the people who don't know, or who might not know, racking is the code word for stealing.
Right. Didn't you guys used to call it inventing?
Steal that shit.
Yeah, because
Invented too.
we had no
Right.
supplies, we would have to invent our
Invent was before racking.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we invented that shit. Like this, up your sleeve.
Yeah, graffiti at its best is an illegal criminal lifestyle. Permission
Young
is
teens.
accepted nowadays, but to experience breaking into things and stealing paint and risking your freedom for something that didn't have any kind of payout was a freedom that was exhilarating. And then when you do a piece, wait on the station, and then it finally pulls up in front of you, and if your friends are around, there's no greater feeling. It's like having your name on a marquee on Broadway. Graph brings about racial unity, okay? So what happens is that dudes from East New York are like hanging out with dudes from Riverdale or wherever just to have a common goal to take over train lines, okay? So right now, where we are in society, we're moving in the other direction. There's more racial divisiveness than I've ever seen in this country. And, you know, hip-hop brought it together a little bit, and Graph did. But, you know, I want to bring up that a lot of writers, and I think Kit could speak on this, because, you know, a lot of dudes that he wrote with were Spanish, black dudes. You know, it was all of us. Didn't matter what skin color you were against the MTA. So
It was just right. We were just writers, man. All of us. We would go hang out. We would sometimes hook up at 149th Street. We all did the same thing. We all peace. We were all interested in painting, racking up, stealing, hopping the trains. If you didn't hop the train, you were a toy. That was it. We all had to hop the train. If you got caught paying for the train, you were considered a toy. That's it. And we all got together and as one. As a writer, as a painter, as a graffiti writer. And that's what it was about.
how do you feel, Jester? I mean, you said before there were certain hoods you wouldn't go to, and obviously there were certain hoods white people wouldn't go to for, you know, various reasons.
Okay, so you gotta understand that there's different generations of graffiti writers. So right now we're in the 70s. We're in the early 70s to the late 70s. And at that time, there was a lot of gangs in the streets. Like that's who you had to watch out for, the gangs, not the police. You had to watch out for the gangs, because if you went into the wrong neighborhood, the gangs would get your ass. And they were different gangs. Like they were like the Black Spades and the Jolly Stompers and, all different type of gangs. But there was also these gangs that hung out by the train yards. And if they catch a black dude, and for me it was really hard because I like to go solo. I mean, I ain't waiting for somebody to come with me. If they ain't want to come with me, I'm going by myself. So if I'm going up to the Bronx, and a lot of white gangs up there hanging out by train yards, and that's what they're waiting for. They getting high, they getting drunk, you know, they waiting to fuck somebody up. So I ain't go up there, bro. I stood in Brooklyn. I stood in Harlem and Brooklyn because I know the deal. Even though I went to high school in the Bronx, I knew better than to try to go up to a yard in the Bronx.
Let me say something about that. There were certain neighborhoods, even though I was from Brooklyn, as a young man of color, you didn't want to go out to Sheepshead Bay to the train yards there, okay? Part of that was if they looked out the window and saw you on the tracks or painting the trains, you then had to escape to the neighborhood to get back to your own neighborhood.
Right.
So it was a definite game of cat and mouse, but I will say this. Wherever there were layups and tunnels where the trains were, you would find every dimensional people, race, color, creed in those tunnels, painting, tagging, bombing, fucking shit up. I was in the tunnel one day in Brooklyn, 4 train, over by Kingston Avenue. Pistol and I go to the tunnel, just the two of us. We get down there, there's 40 guys in the tunnel. Most of them from Manhattan and the Bronx. We're like, what are you guys doing in Brooklyn? Oh man, well the tunnels up where we are hot. Yeah, because there's 40 of y'all in here. Y'all getting ready to make us hot too. Go home. Stop coming to Brooklyn. That's the same day that we made Atlantic Avenue to Brooklyn Writer's Corner. Because we did get chased that day, and I decided, you know what, let's all meet back at Atlantic Avenue. And from there, that became the Brooklyn Writer's Corner.
Every borough had a writer's corner. We all,
49 bench, yeah.
the Bronx had their spot, Manhattan had their spot, Brooklyn, Atlantic Avenue. Staten Island, no, but you still have some of the Fabulous Fives coming in from Staten Island. Right. And their writer's corner was Brooklyn Bridge, like you said. 168 was for Broadway.
ILT, yeah.
Writer's Corner?
Writer's corner.
Last call 188.
Atlantic Avenue was Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
Then
Queens.
Continental was Queens, right.
71st.
I went there with Cliff to recruit. We went there as 3YB to recruit people from Queens to join that crew.
So let me say something about the writers' corners for each borough. Basically, what happened was these were locations that were major train hubs. Most of the trains, they were transfer points. So you can get to those stations easily from any of the trains.
Right.
And it was also a good place for you to sit and watch the trains go by because all the trains went through those stations. So those transfer points became our hubs and our headquarters for where we could meet the other writers and see all of the trains. And that's also how we got to be able to go out to the other areas and branch out to the different boroughs. Okay? So it was important that these hubs were big transfer locations where all the trains connected, and that's what made them important and vital to us as a society. Because it was, you know, the trains were our form of communication. As fast as you could get the word uptown on a train, that's how things travel. If Lionel punched out a cop at Atlantic Avenue, by the time the next train reached the, Grand Concourse, everybody in the Bronx knew about it.
Everybody knew it.
Yeah,
Lionel was,
Oh, he's big, bro.
he's a beast.
yeah, and he didn't take no stuff.
One thing that was interesting was when you got caught back in the day, you would have to do what they call community service or scrubbing. And this was the greatest thing ever for a graffiti writer because it was like the ultimate form of networking. Because writers from all over the city would be thrown together when they got busted, and they would, you know, attempt to clean the stations, but they would be like, yo, you from Brooklyn? Oh shit, how are the yards out there? Oh, you're from the Bronx? Yo, well, I'll take you, you take me. And it wound up spreading a lot more graffiti than ever was cleaned up. And that also was a way of hoods connecting.
Yeah,
You know?
and there was also an exchange of information during those times with the guys, because not only were they sharing locations and techniques, information on how to get into the yards, where the layups were, what time was the best times to go. So the transit system unknowingly fought against their own cause by putting us together on these cleanup teams. They didn't know that the exchange of information was actually a tool that we used to do more damage.
One thing I'd like to bring up, and everybody has somebody, and unfortunately now it's a lot of people that they lost in this game. So I just want to like bring up certain names to certain people. I know Mike 171 because I was at Junior 161's funeral.
Yeah, thanks for coming, bro. Yeah.
And, you know, whatever our differences are, there is
No,
unity.
We're good now, bro.
Okay.
I love you, bro. You're my brother.
All right.
You know,
Wow,
we
you have
just-
a...
If there's,
You know what? Like, I got to say, Mike reminded me that, like, we all love each other in graffiti. We just express it through
just
hate.
gotta share our shit. I love him, man. I'll give you a hug. Give me a hug.
But
We don't hold grudges, bro.
but I just
tell
want...
the truth. We tell the truth.
I want you to talk about Junior and Kay, and you know, and these, you know, Mike,
Yo, I'm here, man.
can you talk about Junior and Kay? These guys, Turok, these guys were the kings of Broadway at one point.
Kay was a playboy. Rocky, tell him, right? Oh yeah. Tell them how they dressed. We were fine. We were down Delancey Street, Playboys, still, you know, the plaids, sharkskins, thank you, alpacas, double knits, beavers, cashmeres. We were pimps at 14 years old. We walked around like that. We get tailor-made and shit, flaps on the back of our things, you know? And that's how we roll, man. And again, the color barrier, like we go back when I went off, I had a fucking flashback, guys. Excuse me, I'm a Vietnam vet, and I just went into war zone, and that's why I went off. So excuse my behavior, you know what I mean? But we're all good. So.
All right.
On that note, you know, thank you. That's why I see
What you guys got to see is this video from the Twyla Tharp Deuce Coupe thing that has like Baby Coco and Stay High 149, Phase 2, all dressed as they were in like whatever year that was, 73, 74.
73,
It's
March of
right. It's right there.
Yeah, 73.
I want to turn this over to Coco so he
thought you
could
asked
tell
me a
us.
question.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to
I don't
interrupt.
know.
I got
Let's talk-
ADD,
let
bro.
Coco-
I
I know.
always do that.
So let Coco speak. You got a question to him, go ahead.
I want you guys to tell us what the Deuce Coupe Twyla Tharp thing.
Well, let Coco talk on that, because he's got more insight than my retardation right now.
The question is, what was like the UGA collaboration with, you know, Deuce
Being on
Coupe?
stage on Broadway the first time, we're
You know,
kids.
We're kids, we're 14, 15, 16.
Is it on or off? Throw these mics away, bro. You don't need them shit.
Hello? Hello?
Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2.
We were, I don't know, 14, 15, 16. I think we were hired to do
10 shows.
10 shows?
10 shows for
performances.
$30 each.
You got the information, maybe you could tell us.
While you talk, I'm gonna show the pictures. I'm gonna show the shit.
And, yeah, the first performance, we did the backdrop while the dancers were doing their performance in the front. It got really bad with the fumes. The dancers weren't feeling it very much.
They're doing ballet. Show them the picture like this, you see? Go ahead.
I think we were hired to do more performances after that. But the very first performance, we got a standing ovation when we went up to the front. I think that sort of like, they weren't doing that for the dancers. Each experience was different.
Did y'all get paid?
We got paid $30.
They fed us and they
Yeah.
gave us a token to get on.
$30 a performance. $30 in, I don't know, do the math.
You go got the money.
With the inflation rate. $30 back then was like, I don't know, what?
$30
$130 today? Yeah.
But let me just say, you got 3,500 people dressed in black gowns, the ladies, and men in tux at the Civic Center, 56th Street, off of 6th and 7th. You got us kids in the background with 3 scrolls going up, and you got Beach Boy music playing while these people are doing lolly-dotty fucking ballet shit, and we spray painting. So again, the spray paint fumes are going everywhere. So there's a picture that was down at Museum of Graffiti in Miami that they got Steve SJK spraying the spray can with the blue spray coming out and Charmin standing next to him. Right. And because that's what Coco was talking about, the fumes fucked up the dancers and threw them off. But we're used to that. Was our get high, you understand? And and so that's what happened with us. While we were doing it, we're having fun, but in the meantime, the ballet people, oh, the fumes, oh my God, we didn't know, about masks and all that shit, but that's what went down. And so on that note, that kind of took graffiti, if people really know about it. It happened on the first week of March of 1973, and then where I showed it in the book, the magazine came out, the New York magazine, which is going to be 50 years, March 26th. It's going to be the 50th year anniversary of the New York magazine coming out. That was an 8-page layout of us, of what we did. So this is the magazine right here. New York magazine issue, March 26, 1973. 50 years. I'm in touch with them now. We're trying to get a 50-year edition on us. This is where my graffiti shit comes in. That I take this as a general to charge up the hill and get all our graffiti shit back to the same old shit. You know what I mean? What we did in 73, we're here 50 years later, we're still here. Hear our story. Do more shows on this. Get us on speaking tours. That's why I'm going to Amsterdam and Paris. So break down the barriers and doors and say, you want the real deal, get us on speaking tours. Get us in places to speak. Right now, I just hooked up with the Universal Hip Hop Museum. Gave them a book, and they got blown out. They see Steve DJing here, 72, 73. They said, we got a spot for you guys in the museum for next year that we're going to put you guys in. So we combined the graffiti culture with the hip-hop culture right now last week. You understand? So this is our history. We're the innovators of the New York City graffiti culture history. And there's no cornbread involved. This ain't Philadelphia. This is New York. This is our shit.
You know what?
This is our culture.
I want to ask you a question
understand?
now.
Go ahead.
You just brought up Philadelphia. There's a lot of debate.
A lot there. There are other pages.
No, I know, but I'm saying
Philly.
Philadelphia might have had a head start and a few years earlier, but nobody in New York really knew what was going on.
There's no internet.
And how do you feel when they take credit for starting Graph that happened in New York?
Okay, last year, Strop Museum, I was out there 2019. Steve and I did a big piece for them, and they put it in the museum. They got Cornbread in there last year, and they say, oh, Cornbread, I started this shit, and he's writing on New York City maps. I told my wife, I'm booking a ticket, I'm going there to blow that shit up. I bought a ticket, I told Ree I'm going. Ree said, yo, what's up? The doctor said, you're getting operated on your shoulder, you can't fly. KLM tells me, you don't use it this December, you lose your money. I'm leaving tomorrow to go there to set the record straight again. You got Cornbread up there, now you're going to bring Tacky, me, and Steve back, and we're going to talk the truth. And what the purpose, you gave him, flew him over, you're going to bring Tacky over, and we're going to have a nice historical thing there. That's why I'm meeting him Monday. I told David, he was down Miami, who runs the shit, and I'm calling the shots. That's what we're doing. We're letting people know. You don't put in what the fuck you want to put on your walls unless you go through us. We're the consultants. We're the concierge of this. This is a mob control shit.
Hey, Mike,
you
I got a
understand?
question. I got a
Go ahead,
question.
Jester. Don't hurt me, man. Go ahead.
My question, in your opinion, is hip-hop an element of graffiti?
No.
Or is graffiti an
No,
element of hip-hop?
no, we are our own entity, bro. And I told them that at the director at the museum the other day. This is our shit. Now, if you want to put us down and you got to piggyback off our shit, yeah, we're allowing you to.
So you saying
We ain't got
hip-hop
nothing
is
to do
an
with
element
hip-hop.
of graffiti?
It ain't
Yes.
got nothing to do with
That's
the
what you're
shit.
saying, right?
They ain't got nothing to do with this. This is our shit. And I'll die yo, this is our shit. And that's it, bro. Give me a heart attack, man. What the fuck you doing?
Hip-hop is graffiti's illegitimate bastard child.
Okay,
Okay.
somebody
Maybe
got
cousin?
fucked along the way. That's
Maybe
what
a
happened,
cousin?
bro. That's all. They
What's
cousins.
the
No,
job?
we combined, but this is our own shit. And they respected that when I went up and told them and showed them the book. And they said, yo, guys, bro, we need you guys part of us. And they said, Steve DJ'd.
Yes.
You understand? We brought Lee too with us. Lonnie, speak on it. You were there. Yes. What'd they do? They praised us, right, Lonnie? You from Up Magazine. You know, the shirt they gave me, I said, I read my name on the motherfucker because you putting the truth. Lonnie's putting the truth down on paper. So when I'm dead and gone, he's videotaping this shit. He's writing this shit. He's my fucking man with the Boys from the Heights. We're going to travel. This ain't a big world. This is a small fucking planet rock. You understand? That we just revolving around. So let's all unite, put our differences aside, all the color, envy, jealousy, and all that shit, and let's just be ourselves, man. Right. God makes it. You're born with nothing. You're going to leave here with nothing. Right. And that's it. I'm going to have a heart attack, man. Go talk to you again.
All right. I would actually be remiss if I didn't call attention to, in my opinion, the greatest living style master still left on the planet, Riff 170.
Where he at? Where Riff? Yeah.
A member of UGA, he wasn't satisfied just to write Riff. He had to do like 26 other names that he would come up with a different one almost every week. And they were all, most of them were nasty. You know, the guy just did things that people now, he laid out the ingredients that people still have in the recipe of what they do today. And they may not have ever heard of Riff, but they're using his bottle cap or, you know, his afro profile or whatever he did that still rocks today. And the guy is still nasty. So, you know, I've always kind of looked up to him. And, you know, he's my boy, and I just wanted to give him his props.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to mention a couple of icons. One that was very close to a lot of people here, Phase 2.
Yeah.
My mentor. You're one of them.
Phase 2, to me, is the embodiment of style, not just on the train, but he did hip-hop flyers, the way that he dressed. He could sing, he could dance, he could play basketball. The guy was like all everything. You know, I don't know anybody who didn't look up to this guy. I think the guy even did the first graffiti sculpture, which was in the Javits Center. He was just a visionary, and if you ever want to know about the culture, read what he wrote. I mean, at home I have 300 emails between me and him where I'm Q&Aing him, just really, what happened? Oh, you and Hot Sauce 575 did this? You know, he just, you know, invented the writer's bench and Hot 110 so much. And I know Riff was his brother from another mother. Coco was super tight with him. Actually, I want to turn it over to Coco and have you say something about him.
Well, I'm going to say that nobody knew him better than I did. I met him in '73. It was an instant friendship. I was with him in his last days in 2019. He gets you on the phone, you're there for hours. He email you, he'll send, I don't know, 20 to 50 emails a week, and it was always in caps. The guy was ahead of his time. He was actually just here visiting, laying down knowledge. I don't know. I could just continue all night. It's just super genius. He wasn't understood because he was just ahead of his time. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's true, man.
Another guy that everybody loved and had a huge impact, especially, I want to say something. This thing started with handwriting. There were no pieces in the beginning. So in order to get noticed, you had to stylize your handwriting better than the next guy. And early on, this guy was leaps and bounds, probably because he was like 5 years older than everybody else, but still. Stay High 149, Voice of the Ghetto, was a monster. Probably the most iconic tag ever, you know, like the guy had uni-wides, these thick markers, and he would blend different colors of ink and write Voice of the Ghetto in the corner panel of the train, and it would be like an acid trip without taking acid. And I'm going to tell you that back then, seeing names like Jester, LSD, you know, Cool Keto, Slim One, a little late. I'm gonna embarrass him, but like Trike had a nasty hand style on the BMTs. Kit 17 had a unique tag style, very different. Riff, of course, he could do everything, but Stay High was the best tag, and in my opinion, and it was everywhere. Along with Super Cool 223, who died out earlier than Stay High did, but you know, Wayne is no longer with us, and he was such a powerful force in graffiti that somebody actually impersonated him and tried to say that he was the original Stay High, because Stay High was. Yeah, because Stay High was gone from the culture. He disappeared for like 20 years, and in his absence, this guy like assumed his identity until, unfortunately, Wayne materialized again. So that didn't work too well. The guy even had like a Stay High 149 tattoo. Yeah, so I don't know. He's bigger than me, so I didn't say that, if you know. But another guy who was a monster on transit that's no longer with us, and I know Jester hung out with him off the trains a lot, is the Wiz. The guy was like on he was all city, but he was mainly a letterline guy. White dude from, you know, I don't know where he was from, but when I knew him, he was from Rockaway. Right. And, you know, him, Kaz, you know, the TMB boys, they just had it. Like,
I feel like Is the Wiz he's the most iconic graffiti writer ever. He did the most out of any. Yeah, he got longevity. And he just, like he said, I hung out with him other than graffiti. Like, we used to hang out, go to the movies, you know, go hang out on, you know, just everything, man. He was such a great dude. Such a great dude, such a nice guy. And I'm waiting for the damn documentary. Where is it?
oh, that's Metal Man
When is
Ed.
that coming out?
I don't know.
It's supposed to have been coming out for the last, 10 years? Where is it?
I'm trying to think. Another guy that we lost who really does not get a lot of mention because, like a lot of people in graffiti, they might have had a partner that overshadowed them. And that's the case a little bit with this guy. But Peanut 2, okay, was one of the nastiest writers ever to do it. He was like right at the side of Tracy 168, Wild Style. And, you know, he passed away, unfortunately, a couple of years ago. But, you know, look up his resume. He was incredible. I know Kit wrote with him a lot. Do you want to say anything about?
First of all, I want to say rest in peace to Peanut 2, D3, 9, MS 167, and Billy 167. Billy, who never really gets mentioned either. He was an icon. Peanut he moved up to, a lot of people at that time were moving up to the North Bronx, and he was one of them. So he came up there with Ton 5. I met Peanut in junior high school, 80. And we were, at that time, there were a lot of writers also piecing in schoolyards, so that was our thing. And I seen him there piecing one day. I said, he was a guy I looked up to, and I said, wow, you're Peanut too, wow. So we hung out, and there was a park we hung out. All of us gathered together in the Oval Park. So at that time, I was slowing down. We would piece, randomly. But one time we were drinking. We did a hit of acid. It was me, him. And we just said, fuck it, let's go to Esplanade, man, And we went to Esplanade with a bunch of paint. We bombed, me, him, Fritos was there. And we just did a top to bottoms. I did a two-man car with him. I did a top to bottom with him. Fritos did a piece over there. But at that time, it was like, we weren't into it no more, but if somebody came up with paint and we were pretty lit up, we'd say, let's go, let's do it, man. And Peanut, that was his last piece he did on the MTA train. I did it with him. The guy was good. I mean, I knew his family, his mother, his brother, Whisk 5, rest in peace, Whisk. He also passed away. I forgot about him, wow. And, it was he was just good people to hang out with, man. He was a very good-hearted person, man. And he was, like he said, he was a monster on the trains, man. His style, and he's really not, a lot of people don't look at him like that, but the guy really did a lot of work. And Tracy, forget about it. Tracy, all these walls you see that are being done here, thank Tracy. He started it. He's the one that started all the murals. That is the man you got to look up to the start of the murals. Everything on the Lower East Side, Florida, overseas, those big murals, Tracy's responsible for that. He's the one who started that.
We can't forget Peanut, too, for
Welcome
Back Hot.
Well, in graffiti, there was, like we all get excited if my tag came out in this movie. There's a scene in The Equalizer. They go in the subway and there's like a terror tag over there. That's like a big deal for us. But the pinnacle of that was the beginning of Welcome Back Kotter, where they show an elevated train running by, and it's got Jester, Peanut, Diablo, Power, Ton 5, and Bot. And I think there's like a TR from Tracy cut out. But
Actually, in the next panel from
we
me,
all used to watch that show as if we didn't know like every piece that was going to come on the same time every night, whatever. But it was like such a big deal. I think graffiti was a great thing because my brother, he's younger than me, but he's kind of like a stick in the mud, and he always says, you're still stuck on the same thing you were doing when you were 16 years old. You should just get over it. But the fact is, I really can't get over it because it was like, such a meaningful point, like to see your name run on a train line. Now, you see these entire trains being done by Europeans and out-of-towners that is on a level that is unprecedented. They have the technology to have spray cans that spray like a foot wide, and there's like 6 guys with military operation precision. But the problem is the trains get taken right out of service, so you have to go on the internet to see them. There's no joy of like sitting at the bench and, critiquing everybody or, stealing somebody's black book. But being on Welcome Back Kotter was like as good as it got back then. And then you could go in and see like, yo, did you see the Boy 170 whole car top to bottom that Riff just pulled off? Or, the Staff 161 Reaper car with the skull coming. Everybody knew that shit,
The Merry Christmas train, Yosemite Sam.
There's one train that needs to be spoken about by Ree, which is the Tracy 168 and Company Kindu Bicentennial, which, talk about that.
Yeah, that's a great train.
The bicentennial car. The bicentennial car was mastered by Kindu. He was the one that came out with the idea. He had a lot of things in his head. And he made us all rack up red, white, and blue paint. We didn't know why we were racking it up, but he said to rack it up, and we went. Let's say for a week we talked about it. The following week we executed it. That was one outstanding car. We did, well, Tracy did every single character on that train. He did the Eagles spread out. He did the marching band coming through. It was an outstanding car for that time period.
Well, it was done to commemorate the bicentennial 200-year anniversary of the United States of America. It had like the drum corps, like the guy with the bandage over his, you know, the drum and fife. And I gotta say, back then, and I don't know in the whole history of graffiti if I ever looked up to a guy with ability more than Tracy, because the guy could draw, and he was everywhere. And he, yeah, and the guy was like, he could fight. He got the girl. You know, he wasn't scared.
He would go into neighborhoods that nobody else would go into. Yeah.
Right. You know, he was a leader of a pretty rough crowd, and you know, and he had so much style, you know, and the guy did like a home movie that like really captures, you know, that era with like Peanut 2 going down a slide and like Cliff jumping on the tracks. He just, you know, he just captured, if you could ever find this video, it really captures the joy of 70s graffiti. Another guy who really caught the vibe is this guy. He's not here, but Flint Gennari. He took pictures back then of the writers that didn't focus on the graffiti, but it was like the style of clothes, the guy's actually writing, and he just, you know, he went to art and design and studied photography, so he knew what he was doing. I think your man SJK took a lot. You want to?
No, I'll speak. You know, Al and Steve, SJK, were in the 10th grade together, right, in math class, whatever, at art and design. Tracy went there, Flint went there. So Flint specialized photography, but he was writing. If you ask Flint his history, he'll tell you he started at 10 years old doing crayons and shit, whatever, you know. But that's Flint for you, you know. But the deal is, you know, these guys were in a school that's teaching you art. It's art and design. So the guys are bringing their talent there. So between Al and Steve and Tracy and Flint, everyone's doing their thing. Steve's father had a photography studio, which the book that you have, all those pictures, was from Steve's father's photography, you know? We were developing shit there. We did double exposures. We're creative in our own way of doing the art. This is history that we preserve, that we put in. That's why I said that book is like a Bible, you know, of the New York City graffiti culture history. So on that, Flint is the man. He got a lot of things on that. And, you know, Gary, you know, we all know this shit. Coco, we all there. I just want to acknowledge Michael Lawrence. He's over here. Michael Lawrence was with Hugo Martinez and Jack. I got to give him a hand, because I'm going to give you a standing ovation, Mike. I love you, bro. You know, this gentleman right here, he witnessed us as kids and how Hugo Martinez exploited us in the sense that, I'm going to say maybe guys, but how UGA dispersed. But Michael, my brother, I love you, man.
Mike was one of the few photographers shooting graffiti and the artist.
All right?
You know, in the history of graffiti, there were very few people when it was first starting who had the forethought to document it. So some of the most amazing pictures were taken by Flint, but also Tracy 168 took pictures of everybody that was like, he's got pictures of super cool, like people shots, and Lava and Cool Breeze hanging out on the station, just like the total vibe. Pictures of people that disappeared, nobody knows what happened to them, but he caught them. Now, you get into Faith of Graffiti, and Martha Cooper and Henry, and that's when it really took off in the mainstream. But there's a certain, cred to the self-documented stuff. I want to call attention to something that Wicked Gary did, which I don't know how he thought of this, but he decided to get everybody's tag on single standing pieces of paper at a time when the movement was just blowing up. The average lifespan of a graffiti writer, what happened was people started tagging, and then when it became piecing, a lot of guys fell off because it took a lot more pain, a lot more work, and a lot more talent. But the initial signature era guys, there wasn't a lot of, preservation of their shit. This guy had like a whole wall full of it. Where is that today?
It is currently a part of the Permanent Museum of the City of New York collection. Basically what happened was, as we started to meet the other writers when we went out to the other boroughs, we didn't have black books back then. There was no such thing as a black book. But I was a fan of these guys who were doing what I was doing. So as I would meet them, I would want to get their autographs. So I happened to have these cardboard cards that I would carry with me whenever I went to the writers' corners in different areas. And I would just have guys sign them as I met them. Turned out that it ended up being a really vital part of the graph history because it documents the time period of the city before we discovered the larger size markers. So you'll see every tag in that collection is done with the original dry marks before we found out about uni-wides and midi-wides, and before 71, 70, 71, 72. And it represents the entire city because there's people from every borough, guys, girls, toys, kings, but it is mostly the pioneers who made the difference. It is the folks who had the impact, and it is who we now call most of them kings and queens. And it is, fortunately, part of the permanent collection of the Museum of the City of New York. So it's in good hands. It has traveled the world. I've seen it in 5 different countries. Every place that the collection went, I've been fortunate enough to see it on the wall while it was hanging.
Nice.
So when Wicked Gary was out there and Coco was out there, nobody could have foreseen what graffiti would blossom into and become a worldwide culture that would affect the entire art world. So I just want to bring up one connect the dots influencer type of thing. Going to art and design, there was Flint Gennari. He was just writing his name in like typewriter letter style at a time where that really stood out. And he would write 3 dots after his name and a saying. Al Díaz, yeah, some of the sayings were for ladies only, for those who dare, bad but not evil, a long way from home. So Al Díaz went to that school, and a few years later, maybe at City Ave School, he and Jean-Michel Basquiat developed this persona, SAMO. And SAMO has the 3 dots after it and different sayings, okay? Al got Jean-Michel thinking about getting into like the graph scene, which led him to his fine art career. So by somebody writing a saying with a magic marker, it inspired another guy to take it in a more conceptual way, which then inspired a guy that wound up selling paintings for $100 million posthumously. So, maybe some of us are sitting here and saying like, okay, I was king of the 3 insides when I was 14 years old. But you could also say like, if I didn't do that, Basquiat wouldn't exist. You want to say something?
I think it would, yeah, It would have definitely panned out differently because I was a graffiti artist from the age of 12, and inspired by guys like everybody here, and then I introduced Jean-Michel was not a member of our subculture because it was a subculture. We had a way of talking, a way of it's obviously, and he didn't participate in that, so. What we were doing was also, we how graffiti was for us. We were talking to us within a small group, within a community. And what me and Jean-Michel were doing was talking to the general public. So it changed the game. It was not tagging. It was using the techniques of, public, spray paint, tagging, going out there and appropriating public space. But it was a different motivation. So it's no longer talking to a graffiti community. So that would not have happened had I not been a participant of graffiti for since for those years, and inspired him to do that. It wouldn't have happened. I mean, so I'm sure that his trajectory would have been, he would have probably ended up becoming a famous artist because he was pre-programmed for that, but not in the same way. It would have been a different story. The same old thing would not have been part of that history. But at this point, we're going to start, if you want to do like a Q&A, we can take a few questions from you. All right?
Good job, Al. Good job, brother.
I think on behalf of all of us, we'd like to thank Al, Mariah, and the Howl people for allowing us to really tell our own stories, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and it's rare that you get to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. And, we're not going to be all love and, tell you what you want to hear, but in the end, you could take it to the bank when the people that were there and did it are telling you what happened. Anybody have a question?
Who?
You, in the hat.
You.
I was always curious, what music did inspire you at that time?
Wow.
There was so much going on in the early mid-'70s,
Rock music.
whether it was metal or R&B.
There was no metal, yeah.
Me,
Jazz, fusion, what were you guys listening to?
I was listening to Motown. I was listening to classic rock, the Beatles, the Stones. I'm a kid of the 60s. I like Sly and the Family Stone a lot. Temptations, Stylistics, The Who, Grateful Dead, Black Sabbath.
So I was listening to pop music. I was listening to WABC and mostly funk. That was it. That's what was going on at that time. Hip hop came a little bit later.
Yeah, I want to bring up something that between rock and hip hop, okay? Hip hop unquestionably blew graffiti up to the world. When they started to use the imagery and Phase started doing the early flyers, and then as hip hop grew, the album covers used the graffiti graphics. They took something that already had been developed. But where did that come from? When you see the rock posters from the 60s, the psychedelic art like Rick Griffin, R. Crumb stuff, and cereal boxes and, album covers, that's Peter Max, right? That LSD, that is where that style was influenced by. But unquestionably, if hip-hop didn't put it all over the world and, graffiti writers weren't, included in hip-hop jams in other countries, Europe. Malcolm McLaren, I think, did Buffalo Girls and had some Dondi in it. That Wild Style movie that Charlie Ahern, who's going to be here on the 17th, did, blew it up. Beat Street, the interspersion of graffiti and hip-hop brought it to a much wider audience. But that doesn't mean that, graffiti is an element of hip-hop. I believe that hip-hop is an element of graffiti, as is rock, as a lot of other things are.
And that may be true, but you guys are here listening to us. We're the 70s. Let the 80s group come in here, the 90s group come in here, and they're gonna tell you they were influenced by hip hop. So it's just a generational thing as usual.
Well, you know what? Here's an interesting connection. Your partner, Peso, was one of the first guys to get a hip-hop deal.
This is true, and not many people know that at least 4 guys out of his group were graffiti writers on the 1 train.
Yeah,
It wasn't just Peso.
Peso, Oscar.
Okay, did you have a question?
So who were the top female checkers back in the day? And why don't we have any?
We have one back here. She got here late. Rocky, what's up? Rocky, front and center. Let's go. Come on, come up, come up, come up. Get over here. Let's go.
And speak your mind.
Come over here.
I'm good, brother man. Good to see you.
What's up, baby?
With your ex-Vandal suit on.
Mexico, I know me too.
Always representing.
Hey, what's up?
What's up?
Everybody feeling? You're among, if you don't know, you're among legends. Right here. Any questions?
We want to hear from your perspective how it was acting back in the day amongst all these men.
Well, it was a graffiti artist. We were vandals. And it was like I was their sister. I was always treated well.
She's before us.
But then nobody wanted to fuck with Stitch.
Why don't you talk, that's another guy that is a huge influence that passed away like a few years ago. Why don't you talk about him? Him and Snake.
Oh, they were partners. Do or die. Stitch was my very first boyfriend.
I reminisce.
He was, people say I was a kid, you don't know what the love of your life is, but for me, he was the love of my life. Yes, I moved on, I got married, had kids, but you never forget the first. Anything else?
So I saw a picture of you in like a little Catholic school.
Yes, he used to.
Was that the Stitch period?
Yes. He would take me to school. I came up from Washington Heights, Writers Corner. He'd pick me up, take me to school all the way down Houston Street, and then do whatever he was going to do, probably hit Pearl Paint. And then he'd come back and get me. It was,
So they looked after you. You were protected.
yes,
We
yes.
took care of it. It's our sister.
Yes.
We took care of it then, we take care of it now.
Yes.
So we were family here.
Oh, I never felt, I guess I was really a tomboy back then.
Tell them how long you known each other.
Oh, man. Damn, we're telling our age now. Come on.
She's 3, 4, I'm 2 days older than me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm 66, so she's young.
Ah.
She's 29, she's 29. But, you know what I mean? But this is how we are. God preserved us, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because he said, I got something in store for you along the way of this journey of life. And we're here together, you know?
Yeah.
This is our bond. These are my brothers here. You know, we all sat and went through hell and back. This is our heaven now, you know?
Yes,
This is our
it is.
last days that we have under the sun. Let us enjoy it together. Let's put peace upon us, you know?
I hear
put
you,
peace
baby,
upon
I hear
us,
you.
You know? We want peace with each other.
I think what you're asking is, have women writers have any type of drama or any type of beef or any type of... Well, they had influence, definitely, because there's a lot of women writers now. You guys don't probably know about it. There's a lot of women writers now, but they don't have any beef. No one messes with them. You know, no one tries to rob them or whatever you may think like that. No, they're accepted. They're part of the platform, and they... Yeah.
You have women now that are amongst the best artists in the world. There's a girl, Mad C, from Germany, that's like incredible. There's a girl, Merlot, who does freights, still active out west. The Musa from Barcelona. There's too many to even mention. The ones that I saw like in the 70s, by far the most up in the city were Barbara and Eva, 62, with Michelle, 62. And Charmin, 65, but Charmin was more on outsides of trains, but Barbara and Eva were like on walls all over the city, you know.
Sharman did the first train, first female.
And then Ashpac.
Barbara and Eva.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of shows now. There's a lot of all-women shows that's going on in New York. Just to keep your eyes open on the IG, because there's one coming up pretty soon.
Also, Charmin, a member of UGA, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And ex-Vandals, yeah. Yeah, I wish she was here. She's no joke. Did you have a question?
Julio.
Yeah, I never ran into about anybody. I did graffiti in the early 80s, and I never ran into like anybody that knew.
1967 he wrote.
Right. Did you met him?
I never got to meet the man, bro. But we heard him. He was a phantom, bro.
Yeah, I know. That's basically where I grew up.
It was there. That's what we saw. Julio right
But
there.
I never ran into an artist, and I did graffiti in the early 80s. I never ran into an artist that met him. That's why I was wondering if any of you guys met him.
There's only one guy.
Way
that we
before
know-
our time.
One guy on record that we know that knew him was Jag. J-A-G, and he put a flower peace sign there. He knew him. He met him a few times. But that's the only word that we heard from someone's mouth that's in our book, the Bible of Wall Riders, that says that. You know? So.
Oh, I'm going to bring up another female writer who, without question, killed everybody that was female in terms of ups, but she wasn't a conventional writer, and that's Prey. Prey was scratched into every phone booth, vending machine in the city. Also, you know, and she was rumored to be an old shopping bag lady, homeless lady. Many people have claimed to have seen her, and
I saw her, I'm not claiming.
Someone said she was a retired nun, bro.
right. But I mean, you could not go anywhere in the city without seeing, and there were other sayings too, like read Bible, worship God. You know, I believe it was all her, or maybe it was a crew of old ladies. I don't know, but you know, I don't know. I think if I was starting a crew today, I would call it "Let's Go Bombing Tonight."
Let's go. I'm ready.
LGBT.
You got paint? You got paint? Who wants to go with us? You got paint.
So, any other questions?
Any questions in the back? Anybody?
I don't have a question. I just
Keto,
have a
what's up?
comment. We were shouting out people who passed away that deserve some recognition. I want to acknowledge Dino Nod, who was the original founder of the Ex-Vandals. It was his concept that changed the face of graffiti with the formation of the crew. So it was his brainstorm, his baby. I've been doing the nursing, but again, I just want to give Dino Nod props because I think he deserves it. And as a pioneer who's gone on, he doesn't get the acknowledgement that he deserves.
True. Couple others. Case 2, rest in peace. Guy had amazing style and was like a double amputee and feared, okay? His partner Butch has a book out. I think they're selling it here. Great writer as well. Dondi, rest in peace. A lot of great writers. Solid, Stim 1, you know, Stan 153, Cliff 159, Dean. You know, you could write a whole laundry list, and the sad thing is, like, every month the list just keeps growing. So, you know, while guys like us in our 60s are still here, you know, like, listen to what we say, because not going to be here forever.
More opportunities either.
Those days are gone. So thank you, everyone, for sitting through our stories. And hopefully, I know I learned something. I hope you guys did.